I was hoping that Peter would be between two Joes, so we could do a whole between two ferns kind of a deal here. But unfortunately,
I don't know what happened.
Unfortunately, we're going to just end up talking about hitters, and we're going to do a little bit of PitchCon ADP wars. So we're going to go do a little battle here. We're going to take some players currently going, obviously, very close to each other in ADP at the same position. Joe Bond, Peter Kreutzer are going to tell you which ones they prefer. And if there's a tie, I guess I'll just have to break it. So, Peter Kreutzer, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you.
I hope you're doing well these days. Why don't, before we start, shout out everybody what's going on in the world of fantasy baseball for you in 2025.
Well, I just released the Rotoman's Fantasy Baseball Guide for after. Well, it's not actually in Amazon yet, but in the next couple of days it'll be. The Kindle is there, but I had a little problem with the cover, so it'll be in the Amazon store in a couple of days. And got my Substack, Rotoman Substack.com, and getting ready to actually start drafting teams.
There you go. And Joe Bond obviously holding up that cover because he was the model for the cover for Peter's new guide. So obviously it's nice to see you wearing a little bit more clothes here, Joe Bond. Joe is one of the best rankers on the planet, whether it be baseball, whether it be football. And it's great to have you here for this conversation today. Joe, why don't you tell the people out there what's going on in your fantasy baseball life these days?
Yeah, you can find all of our stuff over at fantasysixpack.net. Just released our rankings, our draft cheat sheets for both categories and points. Probably the biggest thing right now is we're recruiting for the Fantasy Six Pack series. It's an open public league. Over 100 people have been in it the last 3 years. This will be the fourth year. So analysts and fans, multiple divisions all kind of face off to get one overall champion. You can't see it, but the winner, by the way, gets this bad boy, which means I won it last year.
Nice
so
I'm sure everybody was thrilled about that. There's nothing people love more than when somebody runs something and they win. I'm sure that's it.
This is probably the first time it's ever happened to me. So hey, I'll take
it. It's a thankless job, Joe Bond. Of course, you see all the many fantasy pros ranking trophies behind him. So a lot of hardware. I'm sure your wife is very happy about how much space that takes. Yeah. That's what I thought. Of course, you can also get your fantasy baseball black book right behind me. Boom, right there on Amazon right now. I am not the guy on the cover, just spoiler alert. That's available. And of course, the more guides, the more voices you have, the more opportunity you have to be successful in 2025. And of course, we're here for a good reason. It's the fundraiser for Pitcher List. So go to pitcherlist.com/PitchCon and donate, raising money for ALS today and the next few days as well. So great job, as always, by Nick Pollock putting this all together. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in with 2 feet here to the catcher position. So again, these are players, same position, similar ADP. We have the consensus ADP over from Fantasy Pros we're going to be working with today. Let's start at the catcher position with Adley Rutschman. Maybe a little bit of a disappointment compared to maybe high expectations. Maybe the expectations were too high. I know we're starting off with an Oriole, which is going to be a very loaded thing for Joe Bond. Yainer Diaz, the other guy here. So Diaz and Rutschman right now, currently, you see the average ADP somewhere between 64 and 74. Peter, we'll start with you. Would you rather have Rutschman or Diaz currently where they're sitting in their ADP?
I've got Diaz about a round earlier than Rutschman. I think he finished the season. He finished last year really strong, hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball more. It looked like a step forward. Rutschman had a bad second half after getting whacked on the hand with a pitch, I think, at the midseason. Maybe it was just the injury. Maybe he'll come back and it's a toss up. But I would take Diaz at this point.
Diaz coming off a 16 homer, 84 RBI campaign last year. Very strong, hitting 299. Rutschman, obviously, again, Joe, I think, everybody loves Adley Rutschman, the guy, the player. But statistically speaking, 19 home runs. So it was, very close there, but the average much different there, 250. So Rutschman or Diaz for you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Rutschman here and, not to be a homer, but
no shock. Yeah.
I do look at the fact that, and Peter, you said it, like he got hit on the hand. He was not the same after that. I don't think he's that player. I think he's more what we saw in the first half before the injury. 16 home runs, 275 average. He was balling out before he got hit. Is flat out, the only way to say it. He would have far surpassed, Diaz's numbers, in my opinion, maybe except for average if he did not get injured.
All right. I guess I have to break the tie right off the bat here. It's very close. Man, oh man, I'm gonna lean towards, because of the catching position and has a little bit more, injury risk, as it were. I'm gonna take the guy who's just a little cheaper. So give me Diaz between these two right now, currently. But I'd be happy to have either one of them on my team. So we don't have a very strong feeling on this one. Let's go to another one here. Wilson Contreras, right now, again, still qualifies a catcher, so you get to use him there this year. Will Smith of the Dodgers. Now these guys are very close. The average ADP 100 for Contreras. Will Smith 104. So basically same round, a couple picks away from each other. Joe Bond, Contreras, or Will Smith here in 2025?
I'm going Contreras. I mean, he's going to be playing at first base a lot. So we're going to get a ton of at-bats from this guy. And catcher position, you're going to get more playing time than somebody else. You're going to rack up more counting stats. I'll take that all day.
It's funny, Peter, we put this together, I think yesterday I put this together for us. And since then, they've actually flipped. I'm looking right now on Fantasy Pros and the consensus ADP. So now all of a sudden, Contreras is actually fallen behind Will Smith, which I think is kind of interesting considering the point that Joe makes, which is you're getting everyday at bats. And that's something that's extremely valuable at the catcher position. And you're taking away a lot of that injury risk, right? Not quite as many lumps and bumps and bruises that you're going to take throughout an entire season. So is it Contreras or is it Will Smith of the Dodgers for you, Peter?
So I had this looking at my rankings. I've got Smith way ahead of Contreras, partly because Contreras has been so inconsistent over the years. The argument that he's not going to be catching at all, I think the Cardinals said he's means, that's a lot of that was injury, some distraction because they didn't actually like the way he was catching. But Will Smith is a model of consistency. I think we haven't seen his best year yet. He's just been so steady. I've got him ranked ahead of him. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes, like with most of these, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it went either way.
Yeah, all right, another tie to break. This is fun. I didn't think we'd have this many ties right off the bat. See, good television. That's why Nick Pollock makes me come on here every year. Very tough one here. Both guys have a good string coming into last year of, multiple 20 home run seasons. I think once again, this time I'm going to have to lean towards Will Smith, despite the fact Contreras plays every day. It's that Dodger lineup that I think is just otherworldly right now. And I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of feelings about the Dodgers. And if you've got feelings about the Dodgers, share them here in the comments. Of course, we love to hear from everybody here watching the show today. Let's go to one more catcher spot before we turn for first base here and around the bases. Austin Wells of the New York Yankees at 217. Sean Murphy at 218. So, Peter, we'll start with you on this one here because Sean Murphy, another player, I think last year, there were some solid expectations. Obviously, 72 games, .93 batting average, 10 homers. Not exactly what people were paying for last year, but folks want to buy back in. And then Austin Wells, a player I've seen play in person here. I live very close to the AA Yankees, so I've seen a lot of Austin Wells over the last couple seasons. Another guy where batting average isn't quite there, 229 last year, 13 homers, played 115 games for the Yankees. So if we're talking about, lineups are both good, maybe Austin Wells a little bit more favorable ballpark factor. Peter, what's the tiebreaker for you, and which way do you lean with these two catchers? Wells and Wells and who are we talking about? Sean Murphy. Sorry about that.
Well, I have these guys really close together, and for me, the tiebreaker is Murphy missed a lot of time, was hurt last year, also was sharing time with Travis d'Arnaud. D'Arnaud is gone. He'll play more, I think. And Austin Wells struggled against lefties, and if that means sitting more and playing less than Murphy, he also, I think he struggled a little bit in the second half, and it's early in his career. We don't know exactly how that plays out. So I lean very slightly towards Murphy on this one.
All right, slight lean towards Murphy.
How about you, Joe? My point is I like Wells. I mean, I think Wells could actually take a big step up, but if I'm drafting him, I'm going to take Murphy ahead of him.
Understandably so. He also has a good mustache, which you got to love about Wells. Joe Bond used to have a mustache, I remember. He used to have like the beard at least going at some point.
Yeah,
very clean shaven these days.
Trimmed it a little bit. It's still just scruff.
It's all right. We'll forgive you. All right, so let's go here. Murphy, Wells. Who gets the nod for you, Joe?
Yeah, it's Murphy for all the same reasons Peter said. Just without d'Arnaud there, it's going to open up a lot of playing time for him.
All right, so Murphy, it is finally something the guys agreed on, which is nice. Let's
I'm
go
just
to
trying to make
first
your
base
life
here.
easier.
Well, I don't want. I like getting involved sometimes. It's nice to have my opinion once in a while get thrown out there. Just wish it was on things more exciting than catcher. Everybody knows the catcher for me is like, it's like especially the 2 catcher leagues. No, thank you. Hard pass for me. Just not enough going on there. All right, let's talk about first base here. Vlad Guerrero Jr. We're gonna start at the big boys here. Bryce Harper. Vlad typically going around 15.4. That's the average ADP. Bryce Harper 19.6. Now, again, we're still in the offseason. We're still waiting to see, do the Jays move off Vlad? It seems like he wants to test the waters of free agency, and it seems like after the second half of last season, that could be a huge payday for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So, Joe Bond, you want Vladdy in the contract year or steady Eddie Bryce Harper and that Phillies lineup that continues to look pretty good year over year?
Yeah, with the ADPs being so close, I'll just go with the better player here with Vlad. I like Bryce Harper a lot, but I mean, we talk about a guy who kind of has consistency issues and staying healthy. Bryce Harper has had that over the course of his entire career. Did play 145 games last year, but would it surprise you if he drops down to 110, 120? Not one bit. So Vlad's always in the lineup. I'll trust that any day.
Okay, so Vlad always being a lot. Now Vlad's had some inconsistencies too in his career.
But at least he's there.
He is there. That's fair. He is there, being inconsistent. For you, Peter, obviously Bryce Harper, very solid lock and load kind of guy, and some guys tend to have great years and contract years. Others sometimes put a little bit too much pressure and struggle in some of those contract years. Are you confident there's enough around Vlad in Toronto as that roster is currently constituted? They bring in Santander. That's certainly a big help this offseason. If he remains there, is it Vlad or is it Bryce Harper for you in 2025?
I for all the reasons Joe said, I lean towards Vlad too. Harper is a great player, but he's just not in there enough, often enough to rank higher.
All right. So the boys agree. It's Vlad Guerrero Jr. If you're looking at that turn-ish sort of spot there overall, like I said, 15 right now, the ADP overall for Vlad, and Bryce Harper 19. So we're going to get some big names, some smaller names as we go too. All the names matter here. Okay, as we're doing the ADP wars. Let's talk about Cody Bellinger, now a New York Yankee. His ADP consensus is about 97 over on fantasypros.com. Tristan Casas is at 101.2. Now, I know last year, Joe, we had high expectations again for Casas. Sometimes things don't always go as planned, but a fresh opportunity here, a fresh start for him in 2025. Last year, only played 63 games, was able to hit 13 homers, hit 240. And Casas, as a young player too, just, turning 25, 26 years old in that range, certainly has a lot more to show you. Now, Cody Bellinger coming off a year two where the Cubs decided to move on. Cody Bellinger now ends up as a Yankee, which, Wrigley, a good ballpark. Certainly Yankee Stadium, a good ballpark, especially for left-handed power.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go for that Cody Bellinger left-handed power in New York City, or do you want to stick with the young guy and hope that development of Casas takes a jump forward?
I'm going to stick with Bellinger here. I love the move to New York for him. I actually think, we saw it with Jazz Chisholm last year. Like when they got him in, they just let him run free. And not that I think he's going to have the steals, of Chisholm, but we've seen it from Bellinger before. He can steal 20 bases. I think that's definitely in the realm of possibilities. We know the power can be there in this ballpark. It's going to be there for sure. And I mean, the lineup around him is pretty strong. Boston's is okay, but I mean, Trevor Stories, who's projected to hit behind him right now, is almost never healthy. So good luck there. I mean, it's the guys in front of him that are good, but behind him, there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is the son of a major leaguer, a guy's already played in L.A. and Chicago. I mean, he grew up, with his dad playing for the Yankees. I don't think New York's going to be too big of a stage. Peter, I'm kind of where Joe is. I think I would lean towards the devil I know in Cody Bellinger and some of the lumps I may take there, but certainly the upside being there too, because he's a guy that's really put together these big seasons before. And I think that's where I would lean as well. Are you 3 for 3?
I have them so close. I have Bellinger, and the next guy on my list is Casas. So my thinking is that Bellinger has had a great year in 23, that he's the Yankee Stadium. Casas, though, is a terrific hitter, a a really big personality, a fun guy, and he didn't get a chance to show it last year, and he's at a primetime age. So I have him very close. I mean, I guess I'd give the edge to Bellinger, but if I was picking, I would take Casas.
Well, Bellinger also gives you the stolen base potential too. He only stole 9 bags last year, but 20 and 14 the years before. He's had some multiple seasons in double digits in the past with the Dodgers. So Cody Bellinger, clean sweep, close though for Peter. Too bad fun personality is not a category. Last time I checked, we can't get that. If so, Yasiel Puig would have been the 101 pick back in the day. All right, let's get to another pairing of first basemen. One going at 197 as a consensus ADP, the other at 200. Isaac Paredes now of the Houston Astros and Michael Toglia of the Colorado Rockies. Now, again, Peter Toglia is a guy with power, strikes out too much, in my opinion, still. So we've got to fix that, make a little bit more contact. Paredes, on the other hand, I think we take for granted that he's still so young. And it's funny to me because, I sometimes when you have certain players, they feel like they've just been around forever. And with Paredes, you look up and you say, oh, he's just 25 years old still. Wow. And I know that study came out when he got moved to Houston, which is maybe why the Astros were so keen on acquiring him, was that the home run numbers for him would have jumped in that ballpark. So I know my answer, but I'm curious for you. Is it Paredes or is it Toglia for you in 2025?
Well, I have them as a pick 'em because Paredes there's some open questions here with Paredes. He is one of the softest hitting hitters in baseball, and yet big home run numbers in Tampa. Didn't really put it together in Chicago, but the Crawford boxes are that amazing stat with the 84 softly hit home runs and more balls that were home runs in Houston that wouldn't have been home runs anyplace else. It was a pretty compelling number. But Paredes has some playing time issues. They're talking about signing Bregman and moving him to second base and Altuve to the outfield. And there's a bunch of different things that could happen there. Toglia strikes out too much, but it plays in a fantastic ballpark for home runs. And so they both have their upside and their downside. And I would take Paredes because I had him last year, but that's the only differentiator for me.
All right, Joe, is there a differentiator for you when it comes to these two players?
For me, it's Paredes. The lineup's better, and Toala, again, the 30+% strikeout rate is just, I don't want any part of that. And I mean, we've seen guys in Colorado have like one big season and then they just like fall off.
Nolan Jones.
Yeah, right.
Sorry,
I mean, I wasn't trying to be mean, but geez,
that's
Joe.
all right. I mean, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with you, Peter. Like we have to see what happens with Bregman and how they move this around, because that could play a big difference in this. But as of right now, it's Paredes.
All right, last one at first base, Nolan Chanel of the Los Angeles Angels. He's coming in an ADP average of 292. Spencer Torkelson, 297. Here we go. It's the annual Spencer Torkelson conversation. Joe Bond, you want Torque? You want Chanel? Who do you want on your rosters if you need a corner guy?
Can I say neither one?
No, you have to pick one. That's the whole point of the segment. Look, the draft hypothetically has meandered all the way around. It's giving you all these twists and turns, and this is what presents itself, and this is the decision you have to make.
I guess I'll take Shanuel. At least he makes contact with the ball. Torkelson it's just like, what do we get? Like the 31 home run season was crazy, and we all thought, oh, he's finally arrived. And then last year it was like, what happened? Just disaster. Shanuel doesn't really excite me at all. I think it's very empty. It's just kind of a meh, like empty batting average type player, but it's not even that great. It'd be 250 last year, but I think it could be slightly better. I do expect it to be, but there's just not a lot there to get excited about with either one of these guys, to be honest.
It's funny because Torkelson felt like a can't miss kind of guy, right? That's how he was sold by a lot of the scouts. Yeah. And, outside of the, 2023 campaign with the 31 bombs you were referencing, he has never hit above 234. Doesn't have any speed there. The inconsistency of the contact, the strikeouts, all of that's been a problem. I wonder if he's the kind of guy too, as he's entering his 25, 26, mid 20s seasons here, if he would just do better with maybe a change of scenery, maybe just get out of Detroit. I think for his development, it's been tough to not have a lot of lineup protection historically around him.
Yeah.
But last year that lineup was a little bit better. So, I guess when do we start, or I should say, when do we stop making excuses? Peter, Torkelson or Nolan for you? Which way are you going?
Nolan's first year was just an incredible amount of contact, really soft contact, and walks, right? And then last year he definitely tried to add power to the game. He struck out a lot more, but he still took the walks. It looked like he was trying out something else, and in both of them he was very meh. But he looked like he was improving a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And for Torkelson, it just looked like he was circling the drain last year for much of it. And I think I got to go with Chenul because he actually could get better. It looks like to me he didn't do any minor league time. They threw him right into the major leagues, and he's got to figure it out while he's playing, and that's playing against the big guys. So I would lean toward him. It wouldn't surprise me if Torkelson somehow made an adjustment and hit another 31 home runs some year, but it sure didn't look like it last year.
All right, next up, we're going to move to second base here after talking about first baseman. Xander Bogaerts at 146, Nico Horner of the Cubs at 152. Now, Bogaerts certainly a disappointing year, 111 games, injuries, 11 home runs, 44 RBI, just 50 runs scored, 13 steals, though, so that's helpful. He did hit 264. 2 years ago, very slow start, right? His first year in San Diego off the big contract, but then had a monstrous second half, really made up for time. He was a great trade acquisition guy. And then Nico Horner, I got right now with the Cubs where, I understand in, certain formats, people are going to be valuing those stolen bases. He had 31 last year, 42 the year before, 20 the year before that, but a little bit more limited in the power range. At this stage of their careers, you got one guy who's Bogaerts, who's in his early 30s. Nico Horner is still just 27. So I'll put this one to you first, Peter. Xander Bogaerts or Nico Horner, who would you rather have in 2025?
It's a tough one. Bogaerts, last year looked like he's still a good hitter. I think the fielding is a little off, but he also didn't run much. The power didn't seem to be there. He was just a little bit of much emptier player than he'd been in the past. Horner was hurt during the season, had surgery at the end of the season. He's supposed to be back during spring training at some point, but might miss some of the beginning of the season. It's a shoulder, I think, and it probably won't affect his legs, but if he misses too much playing time, then he's not going to work out. So I have Horner ahead of Bogaerts because the potential for the big stolen base counting, and they both have good batting averages. So it's the stolen bases that turn it for me.
Joe, is it Xander Bogaerts or is it Nico Horner for you?
It's reluctantly Nico Horner. I'm not a big go after the speed only guys, but in this case, this is where Xander Bogaerts is just kind of average. He's not going to hurt you anywhere, but he's not going to really help you anywhere either. To where Nico Horner, if he can get back, in a bad season, he's still 31 bases. If he can get back to 45, 50, then that's a huge boost and a huge advantage for your stolen base category.
Okay, moving on to another one here at 179, Luis Ariz of the San Diego Padres, and then Jackson Holliday at 184. Last year, people were falling over themselves to draft Jackson Holliday. That did not start out very well for those people who did that. He got sent back down. I know this is personal for you, Joe, but signs of life in the minor leagues and signs of life there for Jackson Holliday as the season came to a conclusion. I don't know why these two guys are so close in ADP for me, because I think one guy has all the potential in the world, and the other guy, I already know what he is. He's average and nothing else, basically. So I know my answer, but I don't want to put words in the mouth of Mr. Oriole.
This one's so tough. If we could get Jackson Holliday to play like he did for that 15 game stretch, it felt like, then I'm all in. It's so tough because otherwise he was just abysmal.
he is just 21 years old. Though.
I know. I'm very aware of that. It is very hard for me because I don't like Luis Arraez either. Like for fantasy, like he is batting average, and that's really it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will take the potential with Jackson Holiday, but to be honest with you, I'm not drafting either one of these guys at their ADP.
All right. If I'm stuck here, Peter, I'm taking Holiday over the two. What about you? I'm just saying, hey, let me take a flyer on a guy who could be special, who was the number one prospect in baseball. And we've seen those number one prospects come up at 20, 21 years old and fail miserably all the time. That's not something new. This is the point where there's value to buy back in. So are you buying back on him, or are you just going to take the batting average of Luis Arraez?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
It is.
The note I made on these guys was Reyes does it every year. It's not like he's has a somewhat good batting average every year. He has the best batting average every year, and he is empty in every other way. But the knock on Holiday going into last year was that he was going to be a batting average guy, he was going to hit the ball, but he's not a big steals guy. He's not a big home run power guy yet. He's young, and he was overmatched for over the course of the year last year. He was overmatched. So I think one guy does it every year. The other guy hasn't done it yet. He might have the potential to do it this year, but he could also, he's only 21 years old. He could struggle again. So I'm going to go with Arias on this one.
All right. So there you go.
But I'm also with Joe that I wouldn't be taking either of these guys. I don't.
Look, I don't. I could say that I lie and I don't make up these battles, but I do. And sometimes it gets gross out there in the draft streets, and sometimes you got to make decisions you don't want to make. You're hurting for batting average. I can understand Arraez, but I think this is an opportunity to buy back in on Jackson Holiday, a guy that he was not my favorite prospect last year. There were a bunch of guys that I liked more than him coming into the season. However, I can't say no to the value of the what if, because if he does hit, the organization is behind him. I think, there's a chance all of a sudden where you buy back in at this cost, and it's fantastic, especially in leagues that have keeper scenarios too. Like, you're getting such a discount on a young guy. It's something to really consider and think about. Let's do another one. This time there's 3 names. All right. So we got Michael Garcia of the Kansas City Royals. We got Gleyber Torres now of the Detroit Tigers. You got Brandon Lau of the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, you are going to be drafting these guys at 209, 210, and 217 respectively. So, Peter, is it Gleyber Torres, a new spot? Is it Michael Garcia off of what you saw last year? Or is it Brandon Lau, a guy that, again, struggles to stay on the field, but when he's on it, usually he's a pretty good contributor? Your thoughts? You have 3 to pick from this time. I expanded the field for you guys, so no more complaining. Garcia, Torres, Lau. Who do you have, Peter?
Well, I'll cut to the chase. Torres, to me, is the guy at this point. He had a fantastic second half, and he's just, I think he's just a step above Garcia, who is, I had high hopes for last year and who didn't fulfill them. He became more of a stolen base guy than a line drive stolen base guy, and Brandon Lau, on the other hand, if you're playing in a 15 or 12 team mixed league and you have replacement value at on the list to replace him when he's hurt, I think you can there's a case to be made there. But I think Torres is just a step, 2 steps ahead of Lau because of the injuries, and 1 step ahead of Garcia because he's done it many times and Garcia really hasn't yet.
I gotta say, Joe, I'm oddly intrigued about Gleyber Torres getting out of New York too. I think there was just a negative vibe there for him. Maybe too much pressure, whatever it is. I like the landing spot in Detroit. I think that's a good spot. Young, hungry team around him. Maybe a different version of Torres that might be more relaxed. And it wasn't that long ago too. Torres was another one of these guys who was going to develop into a superstar. Now, he hasn't quite gotten to that level yet, but he has flirted with elite level production before, at least.
Yeah. So Torres is my answer for all the reasons Peter said. I do worry about the landing spot, though. Like, he is moving from a very hitter-friendly park to a very unfriendly hitter's park, honestly, especially from the power department. So that's something I do worry about there. Peter, you brought up a great point. I was going to say, too, like, if you've got IR spots or good replacement value, Brandon Lau all day. Put him in when he's healthy. He outproduces both of these other guys, like, easily, in my opinion. And if he can give you 130, 140 games somehow, he's gonna destroy both these players.
What do you guys think of Lau too, getting out of that ballpark in Tampa now, being out there in the elements at Steinbrenner Field? Any hope that maybe that could also help him or many of these Rays hitters this year?
It's a tough one to handicap. The ballpark is the exact same dimensions as Yankee Stadium, but the atmosphere is kind of a little bit different. I don't know. I read these things about the ball carrying in the humid air, but they're going to be playing in hot days, hot nights, and rainy afternoons. And I don't know. You can guess, but I don't know that anybody knows exactly how it's going to translate.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the next one on our list here is third base, and the hot corner has a hot debate here to start off with. Jazz Chisholm, an average ADP of 28.6. Rafael Devers, also the Boston Red Sox, average ADP of 28.6. It can't get closer than this. So, Joe Bond, Devers or Chisholm for you? Chisholm, obviously, last year going to the New York Yankees. Devers, some rumblings about him maybe moving over to first base. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Still some time left for those decisions, but what do you want to do here? You want to take Devers or Chisholm based off what you saw last year, what you think you're going to get out of these guys in 25?
I'm going to take Devers. I know Chaz has all the tools and, potential 5-tool player. Devers, just in my opinion, is one of the best hitters in baseball. And it's really hard for me to go away from that. He's had his struggles, but also Jazz has struggles staying on the field. So I'll take Devers here.
I'm with you, Joe. I'm a Devers guy also. Peter, is it a clean sweep or you want to make a case for Jazz?
I'm there. I think Chisholm has a much higher ceiling if he can play all year, if he can play with that intensity and stay on the field. He might have a better year, but your average year, if you take 1,000 seasons from the two, Devers is the guy who's going to be more likely. He's going to win more times in that sampling. So I'm with Devers.
So you're willing to give up, both of you are willing to give up the 40 stolen bases potential of Jazz, because that's what we saw last year out of him.
Yeah, and also the 11 stolen bases potential. Because he only plays a quarter of the time.
Touche. All right, next one here. Austin Riley of the Atlanta Braves at 31 overall in ADP. Manny Machado at 33.4. So Machado has really settled in here in San Diego the last couple seasons. You look at last year's stats, obviously 77 runs scored, 29 homers, 104 RBI, had 11 steals for good measure, hit 273. And Austin Riley, a player last year that was a little frustrating for a lot of folks. Down with the home runs, down to 19. The RBI fell off from 97 to 56. The home runs from 37 to 19. The run scored from 117 to 63. Now, I know he played just 110 games, but still, overall, the Austin Riley delivery service was not exactly what folks were hoping for when they drafted him last year. Yet, he is right here with Machado. I find this one a little odd, actually, that they are so close, because I think there's a clear answer. Peter, is there a clear answer for you with Riley and Machado?
No, actually, the funny thing about these two pairings is that the guys that I've matched for years have been Riley and Devers. They're every year, until last year, they were right next to each other in both preseason expectation and what they did during the season. In this case, I've got Machado a little bit ahead of Riley, but Riley had a strong second half, and he can get back to where he was. And Machado is a little bit older and had a kind of better season than average, I think, in recent years. If there's a little jiggling there, I would take Machado here, but it's not. I don't think it's a straightforward choice.
Well, Braves had a lot of injury issues last year, too. Obviously, they got good productivity out of Ozuna, but you lost Acuna. You lost Albies for a big stretch. So, Joe, if everyone's healthier on Austin Riley, do you see a bounce back, or do you want to just go with the steady veteran presence of Machado?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. If you want the safe, reliable guy, it's Manny Machado. It's almost like he gets discounted every year because he's boring at this point. It's like, what you're going to get, right? But hey, that wins you leagues. I'm going to go Riley here. I do look at after May when he only had 3 home runs. He had 16 home runs and then he got injured, right? And so he missed the rest of the year. He was turning it back on. That was the 35, almost 40 home run power we were expecting coming into the season. And you're right, Joe. Get Albies back. Get Acuna back. This lineup's going to be cooking again, and Riley is going to be probably scoring more runs because of it. Like that's the one thing that Manny Machado hasn't done in the last couple of years is his run total has been 75 and 77. So that's not really what you want from a guy that you're drafting in the, top 2-3 rounds. You would hope for a lot more.
You mentioned the word safe before. I don't think the word safe and Royce Lewis have ever been in the same sentence ever, except when he is safe at first base or second base or at home. So Royce Lewis at 93.4, Jordan Westberg 94.2. So Lewis obviously had some moments last year that were otherworldly, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy that for stretchers looked like an MVP kind of candidate. When the dust settled on that season, though, obviously, again, very disappointing based upon games played. Half a season, gave you 16 homers, 47 RBI. Extrapolation is dangerous, Joe. It's a dangerous game to play, but a very enticing one for a guy that we've been waiting for a long time. And then Jordan Westberg, on the flip side here for the Baltimore Orioles, a player that I think maybe crept up on a lot of people at 262. Over 107 games, 18 homers for him, 63 runs driven in, 57 runs scored, also had 6 steals. So is it Westberg or is it Lewis for you in 2025? Joe, let's start with you.
It's it's Westberg for me. Like I know he got injured last year too, but I mean, Lewis is, never on the field. Westberg had an amazing season last year. I don't know if I'm expecting him to just carry that over and give me the 2 halves, like you said, extrapolating the whole season. I'm not expecting that. I think we, see, maybe 20, 22 home runs total for him, but he's just give me the guy who's probably going to get on the field a whole lot more than Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis is incredible when he's on the field though.
Yeah, it's always the when, but again, I mean, this is a knock some young players have had until they don't anymore. So, I mean, Anthony Rendon, I remember back in the day in his career was, he can never play. And then he put together a couple healthy seasons and everyone said, wow, the guy's an all-star great player. We know what happened after that. Peter Kreutzer, which 2 of these guys are you taking on your squad?
Well, this is kind of the opposite of one of the discussions we had before. I think the risk, the Holiday. I think the upside potential for Royce Lewis is so great. You hate to have a guy like you go into the draft, you pick a guy, and you say, well, he's injury prone, but maybe he'll play a little bit, and then he gets hurt in the first game and misses and sits down for months. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a discouraging thing, but the potential is sky high for him. And for Westberg, who was a little surprising last year, seems more like a utility guy than an everyday presence. I think in this case, I think Westberg is over. He's being drafted too early, and I would go with Lewis and the risk there rather than Westberg.
If I had my druthers, I'd be nominating Royce Lewis in every auction salary cap league draft at the first chance I got, just to see what people want to put out there. That's my first round throw out there. Royce Lewis this year. Test the waters. That'll tell you a lot about the room that you're dealing with, I think, in 2025. Let's go to one more pairing of guys at third base. Josh Young of the Texas Rangers, another guy who's flashed in 2023, and then obviously 2024, a bit of a disappointment. Some injuries have been all over. And then there's Matt Shaw, hot prospect over on Fantasy Pros MLB. We just have Jeff Ponce on our show. Did a great breakdown of a lot of the rookies that we expect to make impact. Go check that out on the YouTube channel. But Matt Shaw was one of those guys he was very high on. He had him in his top 5 going into this year. So I know nothing's official yet, but Peter, do you want to take a shot on Matt Shaw or one more shot on Josh Young, despite the fact that it's a little bit, it's different competition there. Jake Berger's around there. They've got some other guys they brought in. So what do you think between these 2 guys?
For me, Shaw is just learning third base. He's still young. I mean, the power potential is fantastic. He looks to be a terrific hitter. I saw him out in Arizona last November. But for me, Young and Young has hurt his hand last year and didn't turn things on when he got back. So there's concerns there. But I think I would go with Young and him reaching the potential that he's shown he has at the major league level, rather than to go with the guy who may not be in the major league level and hasn't shown that what he can do in the major leagues yet.
All right, let's go to you, Joe, for your selection here. Do you want to go with Matt Shaw and what might be, or Josh Young, would you've seen a little taste of, but not a full season yet?
Yeah, this one I go back and forth on because, Matt Shaw is so intriguing. I'm one who kind of shies away from prospects until they've kind of proven it. And I, rightfully so with Holiday last year, like everybody was on him and I was like, yeah, have fun taking him where he's going. Cause I don't want it.
No,
Sometimes I'm wrong. I feel like most of the time I'm not in that scenario.
Well, all that hardware will suggest you're
Yeah.
not wrong very often. I'm just saying. I mean, we're gonna have to build the whole new mantle for you.
Prospects rarely to come out and just absolutely destroy right away. And in my opinion, like when you're talking about a guy with the talent of Josh Young, like I'll take him over Matt Shaw.
For every Jackson Merrill, there's 3 Jackson Holidays, folks. I think that's the ratio. All right, let's get to shortstop position. Gunnar Henderson, Mookie Betts, they're right there for the taking. Joe Bond, Gunnar is at 7.4, Mookie Betts 9.2. Nobody needs me to extol the virtues of these two players. So who do you want in 2025?
Man,
some first round problems we got today.
Yeah, it really is, man.
This should be the easiest one for you. These are the first round guys. Everyone's got their look at my top 10 list. Look at my top 25. I mean, come on.
I'm going to go Mookie. He's just an all around such a good player, man. Like you can't go wrong with him. Gunnar Henderson also struggled second half last season. Like the whole Orioles team struggled. It felt like Henderson included. I think he's plenty good. I think he's going to be awesome again. But I'll take Mookie Betts, especially in that Dodgers lineup. We mentioned it before. I think they're just going to absolutely crush in every category.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer to this one, Peter, but there's certainly a preference. I'm on the Mookie train as well. Is that 3 for 3 for you?
It is. It also helps second, short, and outfield is not a bad thing.
Yeah, versatility is a good one. Speaking of the outfield, O'Neal Cruz is going to go out there, but he still qualifies at shortstop, damn it, for now. So we're going to talk about him here. 48 overall. CJ Abrams, 51 overall. Abrams had a little bit of some issues there at the end of the year, getting to the ballpark and making sure he was ready to play. Abrams, was a player 2 years ago. I know Welsh and I on the podcast were talking about this guy's an extreme value, invest. And then last year, the ADP rose so much, we became a little hesitant, and rightfully so. Cruz, another guy, too, it feels like a tease. So, Peter, both of these guys, I don't think have realized their full potential. Who has a better chance to realize it in 2025 from your investment standpoint?
I'm going to go with Cruz because he hits the ball so hard. He hits the ball harder than Giancarlo Stanton, and that is, to me, an amazing thing. Yeah, he's a big guy with a long swing, but he's just got so much to work with there. And Abrams is a terrific athlete and a good ball player, but the personal issues and the immaturity of that stuff it's just a little ding against him. It could go either way, but I'll bet on Cruz.
I'm excited about the Nats this year, which is a phrase that I've not said in a very long time.
Yeah.
Cruz or Abrams for you, Joe?
I'm going to go Abrams here. I really do think we have not seen quite the potential for him yet either. Cruz obviously has issues staying on the field himself with injuries. He did a pretty good job of it last year, but kind of a tiebreaker here for me is, strikeout rate and just contact rate for both these guys. And Abrams does a slightly better job at that, even though his average is a little less. But I'd rather have the guy who doesn't swing his miss quite as much.
I think the safer one, I would agree, is probably Abrams. But I want to roll the dice with Cruz. I want to see what it is. Like if he can finally put it together. And I kind of like the move to the outfield too. I think maybe for this kid, he just needs to, maybe that will also help a little bit. Just take a little pressure off. We've seen sometimes that change of position be a good thing, taking some guys in the infield to the outfield. And I think that might be the special sauce here with Cruz in 2025. Zach Neto is the next guy we're going to talk about. Bryson Stott right after him. 161 for Neto. A lot of value and a lot of Angels with a lot of good reasons why. And then Bryson Stott here at 166. So, I know health, everything taken into account. Currently, what you have and what Joe Bond, Neto or Stott for you in 2025.
Yeah, that shoulder for Neto is concerning, but I'm gonna still go with him in this scenario. I think his his overall game is just better. Like he really surprised people last year. Like I had to do a double take. I kind of forgot he was a 2030 player when I went back and like looked at it. I was like, wait, what? Who? It like the fact that his draft value is still this low, considering that, you know, and I don't think he's projected them as a whole ton of time. So I'll go back to him.
Peter?
I think just some of the beginning of the season, if it wasn't for that, he would be the clear favorite. I like Bryson Stott a lot better than a lot of people do, but I think Neto just has way more numbers. And the only knock is whether he comes back in 2 weeks after the start of the season or misses a month and a half. That you know, the way those things hurt guys getting hurt again because of something is always a concern.
All right. A reminder as we look to the outfield next, make sure you make your donation for the ALS fundraiser for PitchCon at pitcherlist.com/PitchCon. That's very easy. Pitcherlist.com/PitchCon. I think we're hitting around the 7,000 mark is what I heard Nick Pollock say before we came on. So let's sure we get that number in there. All right. Big names. Let's go. Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker. Two guys in new spots. Tucker is in Chicago for the Cubs, and now Juan Soto for my New York Mets, and I have not come down off this high. It has been fantastic.
As you should.
I enjoy the point. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed anything as a Mets fan, to be honest with you, because there's always this impending doom. And I knew at the end we weren't going to get to the World Series and beat the Dodgers. I knew that was going to happen, but I got to a very zen place, guys, about it last year, and I really just enjoyed the run because it was really magical and fun. And then they gave me Juan Soto for sticking in there throughout October. So Soto and Kyle Tucker's playing for that contract. That's an interesting one. And Juan Soto is going to have that, you know, pressure of a contract that no human being should be able to live up to. So Peter, let's start with you. You're on the clock, first round. Who do you want to start your squad with?
I'm going to take Soto. He's just so good. I play in on base percentage leagues, and there's no question about that.
That's a huge difference maker in the OBP league.
With the batting average, it's very close because of Tucker's steals,
right?
But Soto is just so strong, and that's going to be a pretty good lineup. And I don't think the ballpark is going to hurt him. So it's
I don't think any ballpark can hold Juan Soto really. Joe Bond, what do you think? Is it Soto for you as well?
It's the same for me. I mean, I wish we had gotten a full season out of Kyle Tucker last year. He was on a crazy good pace. But yeah, it's Soto for me. But I mean, these guys are back to back for me, so enjoy either one.
Yeah. Very good. All right. We have Fernando Tatis Jr. here and Corbin Carroll. So let's get to these two. Tatis is at 11, Carroll at 11.8. So you have the opportunity here. Corbin Carroll, another guy who tough first half for Corbin Carroll. No doubt about that. Second half, glorious, rebounded. He's got power, he's got speed. Obviously a lineup that scored a crap ton of runs last year. And then Tatis Jr., who continues to be, you know, arguably one of the top 10 players in the game. These guys are right neck and neck. Joe Bond, which way you're going to go?
I'm going back to Corbin Carroll on this one. I really like his game. Even though they kept saying the shoulder wasn't an issue, this clearly was holding it back because once felt like it sort of healed about halfway through the year. And then we saw, like you said, the second half was just, that was Corbin Carroll that we were used to seeing. And I think we're going to get that again all year long. And Tatis is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, he's got injury concerns. You just feel like his immaturity isn't, you know, kind of creeps up and gets him almost like Bryce Harper did back in the day, right? Like, dude, snap out of it.
Yeah,
Let's go play baseball.
And he's 26 now, so I think it's time to leave the childish things behind when it comes to Tatis. Peter, how about for you, Corbin Carroll or Tatis? These guys right next to each other.
I think the explanation of the shoulder injury in the middle of 2023 that carried over into the first half of 2024. He got healthy and he had a fantastic second half last year. So I'm going to go with Carroll.
Okay.
Tatis, it's so close. It's like a decimal point, right? It's in your list.
It is 11.0, 11.8. They are right there neck and neck. Let's go to the next guys on our list. So Carroll again. So there you go, everybody. 2 for Carroll. Let's go Jackson Chourio at 20.2. The exact same number of Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox. Now, Duran was a player who was probably on our show, our number one value guy, sleeper guy, circle star, draft him, be aggressive. And I have to say, as high as we were, he outperformed all of our expectations. Welsh and I could not believe how good he was. 21 homers, 34 steals, hit 286, scored 111 runs. And Churio, a guy that, certainly took his lumps, let's just say that, in the first half of the season. By the end of the year, was starting to look like that guy that everybody was very excited about. He's just 20 years old. He already had 21 home runs, stole 22 bases, hit 275. So really another one where I don't think you can go wrong, but Peter, there's certainly maybe a guy that you feel better about. I would imagine with the ADP, these guys being so aggressive at the top 20, you got to pick one. Who's it going to be?
I think Duran was a great pick as a sleeper pick down the list last year, and he paid off great. But he's a bad guy to pick up big because he's coming off a career year. He's old. He's an older prospect. I think he's 28 or 29 this year, and I'm all over Churio, who he managed to stay in the major leagues when he got off to a bad start, and he righted himself against major league pitching. So it's pretty impressive.
So, Joe, do you think Churio puts together a full season here and outperforms his ADP, or do you think this is the Jarren Duran that we'd all been waiting for, and this is his new benchmark?
I think it's Churio here. I think Duran's going to be good, but I do think he's getting a little overdrafted. I think we've probably seen the ceiling for Duran, to be honest with you. This is it. I don't know if there's really anywhere else to go for him. Churio, you could expect more. I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a 30-30 season, 30-40 season out of him, something like that. I think that's definitely in his repertoire.
Kyle Schwarber at 45 of the Philadelphia Phillies, or Wyatt Langford 46.6. So look, Wyatt Langford, obviously there were some moments there in the summer where I was ready to get very excited about Wyatt Langford. Inconsistencies, again, some injuries around him that didn't help either in that lineup, but we certainly saw the glimpses, Joe, last year. And we know what Kyle Schwarber is. A lot of home runs, a lot of swing and miss. The month of June is going to be hot. Like that. That's pretty much what we know about Kyle Schwarber at this point. So, Joe, tell me which guy you want on your rosters between these two.
I'm going to go back to Langford here. I just like the potential from him. I think you're right. You know exactly what you're getting from Schwarber. You're going to have these months where you're like, I can't play him. And then you're going to have months where you're like, oh my gosh, he's saving my whole team. Like it's crazy. Those guys are almost more detrimental to your team than a guy who's like kind of underperforming a little bit, just slightly all year long. Because Schwarber is going to sink you like a couple of times, like especially in head-to-head, like weekly head-to-head leagues. He can like lose you weeks. He's so bad. So I don't want that. I think Langford's going to right the ship here and be more consistent.
Peter, are you ready to give Wyatt Langford one more shot here at redemption?
I 2 or 3 more shots, I think. I mean,
okay.
There's got to be a little question about him this year, but there's so much talent there, and there's so much skill. He's gonna figure it out and be one of the best players in the league for the next few years. And Schwarber, everything Joe said was. He's good to have on the good weeks. That's all
Trade him off the hot streak, folks, and buy on the dip, sell on the rest.
Use him in DFS.
All right, so we're almost out of here. We got 2 minutes left, so with a 2-minute warning, let's do rapid fire. Okay, Brent Rooker, Marcelo Ozuna, Peter Kreutzer. Who do you want, Ozuna or Rooker?
I like Rooker because of the steals.
All right, Joe Bond, Brenton Doyle, Anthony Santander, 75 and 76 respectively. Who do you want?
I would take Santander.
Seiya Suzuki at 88, Brian Reynolds at 89. I feel like Brian Reynolds never gets any respect. Peter, what do you want to do here?
I have them ranked exactly the same, and I'm picking Suzuki because he's been solid, and I think there is more there, and Brian Reynolds will be exactly the same.
All right, 3 more: Riley Green or Mike Trout. Joe Bond.
I can't draft Trout anymore.
Oh my God, he's out, folks. Dylan Cruz or Pete Crow Armstrong. Peter Kreutzer.
I got this one too. I'm taking Armstrong because the Cruz bust potential this year is not long term, but this year is higher.
And you know what? Rather than do this last one, I want to get your take. Riley.
I lost Joe.
Hey, me too.
Oh, sorry. I zoned out there for a minute. It looks like the stream froze on me. I want to get Peter's take on Mike Trout, Riley Green also.
Oh, Riley Green easily.
Okay.
It's not that Trout couldn't couldn't do it. If he's going to DH all year and he's not going to slide, he might, maybe he'll get 550 at bats, and he's been a tremendous hitter when he's been able to play, but he's still going to have to run some, and it's that body doesn't seem to be made for it.